Hello everyone. So today we are going to start a new topic named circular motion, which comes under the chapter name motion in a plane. We already know that the motion in a plane is nothing but when the 2 out of 3 dimensions are changes or 2 out of 3 coordinates required to specify the position of an object in space changes with respect to time, then that particular case is called the motion in a plane. We already know that to represent the motion in a plane we have to draw a plane. For example, this is the xy plane and the object changes its position from one point to other, then both x and y coordinates are changing. So we are moving from the position this position to this position where both x and y coordinate are changing. That's why it is called the motion in a plane. So circular motion is also an example of motion in a plane, and the projectile motion we have already covered in our previous lectures. You can also refer that. So let's talk about the circular motion today. So what do you mean by the circular motion? The movement of a body following a circular path is called a circular motion. We already know that whenever a body follows a circular path, then we can call it as the circular motion. Anything which rotates, anything which follows the circular path is called the circular motion. But the question is how we can create the circular motion. So in technical terms, just read down this. To create the circular motion in a body, it must be given some initial velocity and a force must act on the body which is always directed at right angles to the instantaneous velocity. This is actually technically written, but we need to ease down the language to understand. See, always remember one thing, we need to give a velocity. We need to give some initial velocity to the object to whom we want to rotate, and also we want that particular body to keep on rotating. So how it can be possible? If it can only be possible if there is a force which is acting towards the center which holds the body which is rotating. Okay, so that's why we call that there are two things which are required. The one is the initial velocity and the other is the force which is acting towards the center. So let's give an example. You might have seen, this is an example that there is a girl, there is a sports girl which is actually rotating spinning a ball which is tied on the string. So this is also a game. So one string is there and the ball is tied at the other end and she is rotating the ball. So why the ball is getting the rotation? Because of the velocity. And why the ball keeps on rotating? Because of the force, and that force acts towards the center with the help of the string. That particular force is called the centripetal force which holds the object towards the center. And if we remove the force, for example, if we cut the string, this ball follows a straight line path and falls down at the end to the ground. So that's why that particular string is also necessary which holds the object and pulls the object towards the center, and the velocity is making that ball possible to keeps on rotating. So that's why it is written here both initial velocity and the force both are which is acting right angles to each other. You can see in the given figure also the force and the velocity component both are acting at the right angle to each other, and the body keeps on rotating and following a circular path. So read down this one important element that makes circular motion possible is centripetal force. I already told you the force which is acting towards the center which makes the rotation possible is centripetal force. Now we also know that according to Newton's law of motion, an object generally requires a certain force which is acted upon it for an object to move, to accelerate and to react. So for all the three things, to move, to accelerate and to react, there is a force which is required. So in circular motion, if that force is absent, let us assume that in circular motion if that force is absent, that centripetal force is absent, what will happen? I already told you that object will move in a straight line path because there is nothing that pulls the object inwards, and it will fall down. So I have given you the one example, spinning a ball on the string. The second example is while turning a car, around the curved or circular road. The car is having some centripetal force which tends the car to move in a circular path, which is acting towards the hypothetical center of this curved road. Now also you might be knowing about the going through the roller coaster ride, like in the SL World and the other big recreational centers where there are such roller coasters are made. There are some circular curves and paths present, and the one who is sitting on this particular moving car is why he or she does not fall, due to the centripetal force which is acting along the center of this particular roller coaster circular path. So this is also an example. And the next example, which is highly popular, is actually the earth revolves around the sun in an elliptical path, but we can assume that if it is following a somewhat this circular path, so why the earth is rotating around the sun? What is which is actually holding the earth with the sun? That is centripetal force, which is that is why due to the centripetal force only the earth is able to rotate around the sun in the circular path, and the velocity which is acting in the tangential direction is giving the earth the forward direction. That's why it is moving around the circular path. So these are the 4 examples by which the circular motion is possible. Now let's move to the types of circular motion. There are basically 2 types of circular motion. One is called the uniform circular motion and the other one is called the non-uniform circular motion. So why any circular motion is called uniform? When there is the speed constant, यानी कि any body if moves with a constant speed, then we can call that motion as the uniform circular motion. Just take an example of the giant wheel. Like you might have seen, there are recreational activities which is held, or the Mela kind of Meena Bazaar you might have seen in your cities, which is having such kind of giant wheel for the recreation of the children's. So such kind of a giant wheel also rotates, and the person sitting on these seats of this giant wheel having their centripetal force acting towards the center, and that particular giant wheel is rotated. For example, initially it takes 2 to 3 minutes to take the constant speed. Then thereafter that particular giant will rotate with a constant speed. So we'll ignore the initial situation while taking off to reach the constant speed. After that it follows the uniform circular motion because it is rotating with a uniform circular path. Just ignore the initial part where it takes the speed and reaches to uniform speed. Also take an example of the clock. If you take any hands of the clock, it rotates with a uniform speed in a circular path. You take the example of second hand, you take the example of minute hand, you take the example of hour hand. All 3 rotates with a constant speed and moves in a circular path. So this is also an example of uniform circular motion. Then what about the non-uniform circular motion? When an object moves in a circular path with the varying speed. Example is, one is the speedometer. You might have seen in your car, on the vehicle, bike, there is a speedometer, and it has one needle kind of which is slowing the deflection. That needle moves in the circular path with the varying speed, increasing and decreasing. So that sort of motion is called the non-uniform circular motion because it is following the circular path only. Now the next example is when rotating a ball tied with the string. When you are rotating the ball and you have a tendency to rotate the ball with the different speeds. You are overexcited and initially rotate in the slowly, then you rotate in the fast way. So you are changing the speed. So that in that condition you can call it as the non-uniform circular motion. But if you are rotating with a constant speed, then that comes under the example of the uniform circular motion. So you are clear with the 2 types of circular motion. Then we will move to discuss uniform circular motion in detail. So uniform circular motion is something in which the particle moves along the circle with a constant speed. And one more definition, it is in short form it is called as UCM. UCM can also be defined as the periodic motion of a particle moving along the circumference of a circle with constant speed. So this word is very important, that is periodic motion. Periodic motion means, for example, you have started from here and again you come here, again you come here, again you come here. So you are reaching the same point again and again and again. You are passing the same point again and again. That's why it is called the periodic motion. Something which repeats itself. That's why it is called the periodic motion. And the main agenda here is there are few terms which are associated with the uniform circular motion which we are going to discuss today. And these are the terms. The first one is angular displacement, the second one is the angular velocity, the third one is the time period, the fourth one is the frequency, the next one is the angular acceleration, and the next one is centripetal acceleration. These are the terms that we are going to discuss one by one. Let's start from the angular displacement. Try to understand this concept in detail. First of all, the angular displacement of a particle moving along a circular path is defined as the angle swept out by its radius vector in the given time interval. First of all, what is the radius vector? Radius vector is the line joining the center to any point on the circumference of the circle. For example, this is the center O. The circle which is given, this is the center O. Take this point and join this point with the center O. This is called the radius vector. This point is called the radius vector. Say this point is ON. Thus ON point is called the radius vector. Now just reread down the definition. Ki the angle swept out by its radius vector. And we know that ki for in the motion in a plane, what we do, we draw the coordinate system. So here also we will draw a coordinate system. We will consider a baseline. Say this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. Okay. So what is happening? The x-axis here, take a point P0 on the circumference. This is the initial point from where the distance is being measured or from where the angle is being measured. Say at time t is equal to 0, I am at point, or at time t is equal to t1, I am at position A. Then I move from position A to B at time t is equal to t2. Also, when I was at A, the angle that is being made was theta1 with P0 or from the horizontal axis. And when I reached the point B, the angle made is theta 2. Clearly you can see that the angle which is being made is theta 2. The angle which is being made is theta 2. Now you can say that from theta 1 to theta 2 we have covered some distance. So what is the actual distance, what is the angle or angular displacement that has been covered? Here the angular displacement part is nothing but the theta 2 minus theta 1 or del theta. This is the angular displacement that have been covered. Also, if you will talk about the distance, it is nothing but the del S or the arc. The position A to B, we have moved an arc del S distance. So in time t2 minus t1 or del t, we have covered an angular displacement of del theta. This del theta is only called the angular displacement because we have covered an angle from theta 1 to theta 2. This is the del theta, which is the change in the angle. We have moved from the theta 1 position to the theta 2 position. The change in the angle is del theta in the time del t. Clear? So we also know that there is a famous mathematical relation that theta is equal to arc upon radius. We'll use the same concept. We have covered the del theta angle in the time del t, and we have covered an arc of distance del s. So we know the relation between the angle, arc and radius is nothing but theta is equal to arc upon radius. The angle is del theta and the distance is nothing but the arc, which is nothing but the del s, and the radius is small r. So this is an important relation. Del s is equal to del theta is equal to del s upon r. We also know that the angular displacement SI units is radian, and radian does not have any dimensions. Like from the 7 fundamental quantity, it does not have any unit. There are two separate units, that is radian and steradian, for the angle and the solid radian. So that's why it is a dimensionless quantity and the unit is radian. So this is about the angular displacement. Now we'll move to the angular velocity part. See, angular velocity is denoted by a special symbol. This W kind of symbol is called the omega. This is read as the omega. Let's read down the definition. Rate of change of angular displacement of a particle is called its angular velocity. It is just like the linear velocity or velocity which we have covered in the motion in a straight line. That velocity is nothing but the displacement upon time or the distance upon time. So it is just like that only. Here we'll talk about the angular displacement. That's why the rate of change of angular displacement with respect to time is called the angular velocity. Again, the unit of angle is nothing but the radian, and the angle of time is nothing but the second. That's why the unit of angular velocity is nothing but radian per second. And it only have the second quantity or the time quantity as the dimension. Therefore the dimensional formula of angular velocity is m0 l0 t minus 1. That is as simple as that. Again, just like in the linear part or in motion in the straight line, we know that there are two kinds of velocity which is possible. Similarly, there are two kinds of angular velocity which is possible. The first one is average angular velocity and the second one is the instantaneous angular velocity. What is average velocity? For example, we are moving along the circular path from A to B we have covered. So what we are going to calculate, we will talk about from A to B. When we move from A to B, we will talk about the average angular velocity, and that is denoted by omega bar. There is a line above the omega which is nothing but del theta upon del t. But when we talk about when you reach this point, what is your angular velocity? That particular velocity or this kind of velocity is called the instantaneous velocity at any particular instant when the time approaches 0 or del t approaches 0. That's why it is written like this: limit del t tends to 0, del theta upon del t. That is called the angular velocity. Now the next term which comes is the time period, which is denoted by capital T. And what is the time period? For example, you are starting from this point and again you reach this point. So how much time is taken to complete the one revolution is called the time period. I repeat it, how much time is taken to complete one revolution is called the time period. So it is written here, to complete one revolution along its circular path is called the time period, and again it is measured in the seconds and it is denoted by capital T. Now the next term is the frequency. It is actually denoted by, it looks like V, but it is not V, it is nu. This particular symbol is read as the nu. This is a Greek symbol nu, which denotes the frequency. So what is the frequency of an object moving in a circular motion? The frequency of an object in a circular motion is defined as the number of revolutions per unit time. What it means? In 1 second, how many revolutions you have completed is called the frequency. In 1 second, how many revolutions you have covered, that is called the frequency. So let's relate the frequency and the time period. So here, how we can relate? For example, you talk about the time period. To complete the one revolution, we know that how much time is taken is t second. So in 1 second, how much revolution we will cover? It is nothing but the 1 upon t revolution, correct? In one revolution we have taken the t second by definition of the time period. So what about in 1 second? Take the t in the denominator, it will become 1 upon t revolution, that will cover in the 1 second. And by definition of the frequency, that how much revolution we have covered in the 1 second or the per second is called the frequency. So we can directly relate the frequency and the time period as frequency is nothing but the 1 upon time period. So this is what the relation between the frequency and the time period, that in 1 second we have covered the 1 upon t revolution. So the relation between the frequency and the time period is nothing but frequency is equal to 1 upon time period. Okay. So these are the four terms. Now we'll talk about the relation between the omega, mu, nu and time period, that is angular velocity, frequency and the time period. Okay, so let's relate these quantities. By definition of the time period, we know that to complete the one revolution, the time taken is nothing but the capital T. So also you might be knowing about it with your basic maths concept, that to complete the one revolution or to take the one revolution, the angle which is covered is nothing but the 360 degree. Any particle covers 360 degree to rotate one complete revolution. So convert that 360 degree into pi. So we know that to convert it into pi, just multiply it by pi upon 180, it will become 180 2 यानी कि in taking complete one revolution, it covers an angle of 2 pi. So this is our angular displacement. And what is the time period to cover the one revolution is capital T. So the angular velocity is nothing but the angular displacement upon time. Just put the angular displacement up as 2 pi and time as capital T. So this is the relation between the omega and the time period, which is nothing but omega is equal to 2 pi upon T. Just now we also related the time period and frequency. We know that 1 upon time period is nothing but the frequency. So this will also become 2 pi into nu, or 2 pi into frequency. So this is the relation between the omega, time period and frequency. That is, omega is equal to 2 pi upon capital T or is equal to 2 pi nu. Now we'll move to the next. The next relation, we are going to relate linear velocity with the angular velocity. Linear velocity that we have covered in the motion in a straight line, that is v, and the angular velocity is nothing but the omega. So what we are going to do, we are going to relate the v with the omega. So that is our task. Let's read down here. Consider a particle moving along a circular path of radius r. Suppose the particle moves from A to B. Suppose we started here from A and we move to the B. And in that moving from A to B, we have covered an angular displacement of del theta. And the radius of the circular path is r, or the radius vector is r. And from A to B, we have covered an arc or distance of del s. We also know that there is a relation between theta is equal to arc upon radius, del theta is equal to del s upon r. Do one thing, divide both sides by small del t. Divide both sides by del t, the equation will become del theta upon del t is equal to 1 upon r del s upon del t. Now we also know that taking limit both the sides, take limit del t tends to 0 both the sides, because we want the instantaneous quantity. When you take the limit del t tends to 0, this quantity will become limit del t tends to 0 del theta upon del t 1 upon r, limit del t tends to 0 del s upon del t. And we know that limit del theta upon del t is nothing but d theta upon dt, which is nothing but the omega, which is nothing but the instantaneous angular velocity. And also limit del t tends to 0 del s upon del t is nothing but ds upon dt, which is nothing but the v, which is nothing but the instantaneous linear velocity. Just substitute these values in this particular equation. So the equation will become omega is equal to 1 upon r into v. Here omega is equal to v upon r. Then the v will become v is equal to omega r. This is the required relation between the linear velocity and the angular velocity. It can also be read as linear velocity is equal to angular velocity into radius. Okay. Now we'll come to the next one, the fifth terminology, which is nothing but the angular acceleration. Always remember one thing, कि whenever an object moves or travels in a non-uniform circular motion, then definitely that particular object or that particular particle is going to accelerate. It is just like in the linear or uniform, in the linear, or just like in the motion in a straight line. When you are moving and your speed keeps on increasing, for example, you are moving with the 5 meter per second square acceleration. This is the linear acceleration. What is the meaning of the 5 meter per second square acceleration? It is nothing but your speed gets increased by 5 meter per second per second. The speed gets increases by 5 meter per second per second. Like initially the speed was 10, it becomes 15, it becomes 20 on the very next second. So this how 5 meter by 5 meter per second your velocity keeps on increasing. So this is about the acceleration. Just like in the circular motion, this is called the angular acceleration. Your angular velocity keeps on increasing per second. That is called the angular acceleration. The rate of change of angular velocity of a particle is called the angular acceleration. And always remember one thing, the angular acceleration is actually denoted by a Greek symbol named alpha. And again there are two kinds of acceleration. One is called the average and the second one is called the instantaneous. Average is again denoted by alpha bar, which is nothing but the change in angular velocity with respect to change in time. And the second one is called the instantaneous. Just take the limit del t tends to 0, or for the very small time del t tends to 0, which approaches 0. This will become del omega upon del t. This is also written as d omega upon dt. We already know for the linear case also. Now one more thing, the unit of acceleration, angular acceleration, is radian per second square. And the dimensional formula is nothing but m0 L0 t minus 2. That you should know. Now we're going to relate the linear acceleration with the angular acceleration here. We know that just now we have derived a relation between the linear velocity and angular velocity. that is v is equal to omega r. Just differentiate both sides with respect to t. So it will become dv upon dt and it will become d upon dt omega r. And take the r as, because r is a constant quantity, just take r as constant and it will become d omega upon dt. And we know that dv upon dt, or change in velocity with respect to time, is called the acceleration. Also, change in angular velocity with respect to time is called the angular acceleration. So this will become a is equal to alpha r. This is also very important, and relation between the linear acceleration and the angular acceleration, that we should remember. So now this is a very important term, and in this particular case we are going to derive a relation for the centripetal acceleration. Always remember one thing, कि when you are following a circular path, so this is the acceleration which is compulsorily act, which will always present, even though the tangential or this particular angular acceleration may or may not be present. Still, for example, if the angular acceleration is absent, then also the circular motion is possible. But without centripetal acceleration, the circular motion is not possible. This centripetal acceleration will always act. So chalo, try to understand the concept of centripetal acceleration, which is very important, and usually the derivation part is very important because it comes in examinations. Let's read down. A body undergoing uniform circular motion is acted upon by an acceleration which is directed along the radius towards the center of the circular path. That means if any acceleration which acts towards the center, see here, this is denoted by a subscript c, that any acceleration which acts towards the center is called the centripetal acceleration, or it is also called the center seeking acceleration, one which is looking after the center. That is called the centripetal acceleration. Let's try to understand it more deeply by deriving an expression for centripetal acceleration. This is very important, just try to concentrate here. For example, I am considering a particle which is starting from the point P. Now just change the color of the pen because it is all red here. So I am starting from the point P and moving to point Q. For example, at point P the velocity is v1, which is acting tangentially. Always remember one thing, at the circumference the velocity always acts tangential. So at point P from where I am starting, at time t, say at time t I was at P and the velocity is v1. Now after t plus del t, or after del t time, I reaches the point Q where the velocity is again acting tangentially, which is v2. So from moving from P to Q, the angular displacement is del theta. That means I have covered an angle of del theta from moving from P to Q, and also the radius is small r. And the v1 and v2 are the two velocities vector which is acting at P and Q respectively. This is about the diagram. And also, while moving from P to Q, the arc that has been covered is nothing but the del S. The arc which will be covered is nothing but del S, just like the previous cases that we have discussed. The arc which is covered from P to Q is del S. Hopefully this diagram is clear. Now we'll come to this diagram. To determine the change in the velocity, take an external point A. What actually our aim is to determine the change in velocity. Actually, to know about the centripetal acceleration, this is very important. We know that the acceleration is nothing but the change in velocity with respect to time. So to know about the centripetal acceleration, we need to know about the direction of change in velocity and change in velocity. So what I am doing here, to determine the change in velocity, I am taking an external point A. Again, I am just considering a hypothetical point A somewhere here. Now what I will do, I will draw AB equal to and parallel to V1. Remember one thing, what I am doing here, from A point I will draw parallel. This is the line. Say this is the V1 line, just parallel to this line I will draw here. Say this and this both are parallel. It is clearly visible here that AB is parallel to that V1 wala line, tangential line. So again I am repeating here that from the A point I am drawing a line parallel to the V1. So this is parallel to this particular case. Okay. And now again what I am doing, what I will do, I will draw AC equal to and parallel to V2. See here, The V2 is acting here, so again from A to C, I will draw AC parallel to V2. See, these both are parallel now. Just like this both are parallel. So what I have done, I have drawn V2 and AC parallel, I have drawn V1 and AB parallel from the point A which I have taken hypothetically somewhere here in the plane. Now remember one thing, the angle which is covered here is del theta, which will come part. Now what I am going to do, just try to understand here. We know that we have read the concept that a triangle law of vector addition. We have covered this topic. So what is the triangle law of vector addition? Triangle law of vector addition states that whenever the two vectors are acting such that the tail of the one vector is acting on the head of the other vector, such that the resultant vector will be the closing side of a triangle taken in the opposite order. Just refer the definition of the triangle law of vector addition, that whenever the two vectors are acting in the different directions such that the second vector which is acting, whose tail is on the head of the first vector, such that the resultant will be the closing side of a triangle taken in the opposite order. So clearly you can see this triangle here which we have drawn. This AB plus BC, which are both in the same order, yani ki AB plus BC, then the resultant will be given by AC as per the triangle law of vector addition, because this is the closing side. Correct? So AB plus BC is equal to AC as per the triangle law of vector addition. Now we can calculate the BC. Actually we know the AB, we know the AC, but we don't know the BC. That's why we'll calculate the BC here. It will become AC minus AB. Then BC will become AC minus AB. AC is nothing but V2 and AB is nothing but V1. So it will become V2 minus V1. And I will denote it as del V, or the change in the velocity. So I will write here del V. Why I have written del V? Because it denotes the change in the velocity from this triangle law of vector addition which I have taken from triangle BAC. Clearly? So what I have done, just I have drawn a triangle by referring this figure to this figure, and by using the triangle law of vector addition I have just write down the BC as the del V. That's what I have done till now. Now what I will do, just try to concentrate here. This is very important concept. See, if del T is small, the chord PQ becomes arc PQ. What I am assuming here, that when we move from P to Q, the del T, this time is very small, that means the del theta is very small. For this very small time del T, I am assuming that this arc P to Q is equal to the line which is P to Q. The arc is equal to the line PQ. Why assuming that? Because I have to take a triangle here. That's why I am assuming that P to Q arc is equal to the PQ, because the time is very small. I am assuming that for this very small time del T, the arc PQ is equal to the straight line PQ. Okay. So remember one more thing, this is very important how I am relating the triangles. So take the triangle OPQ here. Just try to understand here. For example, the angle del theta is made here between the OP and OQ. The angle del theta is made between the OP and OQ. We also know that the velocity which acts here is perpendicular this OQ. Why? We know as per the circle chapter of mathematics that any tangent is perpendicular to the line joining the center to the point on the circumference of the circle where the tangent is drawn. So this particular tangent and this particular radius vector OQ is perpendicular to each other, and also the OP and this particular V1 tangent is also perpendicular to each other. So what I am trying to say that whenever the two lines make an angle theta, then their perpendicular will also make the same angle. It is just like this. This is a very important concept and mathematical concept. For example, these are the two lines which is making an angle theta. So when I will draw the perpendicular of this line and when I will draw the perpendicular of this line, so this two also makes an angle theta. This is very important to understand. That's why कि when you talk about the V2 and V1 which you have drawn here, this too also makes an angle theta. We already know that this V2 and this V2 both are parallel, this V1 and this V1 are also parallel, and this both are perpendicular to this del theta. That's why this V2 and V1 will also make an angle del theta. This is what I need to say. So that's why angle POQ is equal to angle BAC is equal to del theta. See, angle POQ, angle BAC is equal to del theta. The reason is also written here. Just let me highlight. This is because the angle between the radii PQ and QO is same as that of the angle between the tangents at P and Q. That's what I have discussed. Now I will take the two triangles, the triangle POQ. I will take the triangle POQ and triangle BAC. And I will just use this condition that angle POQ is equal to angle BAC is equal to del theta. And also remember one thing, we know that ki OP and OQ are the radius. We know that OP and OQ are the radius, so that's why we can say that ki OP upon OQ is 1. Obviously both are R upon R is nothing but 1. And one more thing, always remember that ki in the uniform circular motion case, the velocity which is acting at point P and the velocity which is acting at point Q, they both are same. That's why I have written here the AB and AC both are equal to V. That means V1 upon V2 is equal to V, magnitude wise. So it will come as AB upon AC is also equal to 1. So clearly see that you know about the similarity concept ki this upon this is equal to this upon this, and the angle between them, take OP upon OQ is equal to AB upon AC, and the angle between them is also same. So by side angle side similarity, we note about the side angle side similarity that the two sides are proportional and the angle between them is also equal. In that case the two triangles will become similar. So by similarity concept we also know that ki the third side ratio, this PQ upon OP. Now this PQ, this is here PQ, I will just highlight here because I have scribbled down so much here. This PQ upon OP, this PQ upon OP is equal to BC upon AB, BC upon AB. These both are equal. Now we know that PQ is nothing but I have already assumed that this PQ is equal to the arc. So I will take PQ value as del S and OP as the radius. We know that the O se leke P distance is nothing but the radius. So I will put here the R. So this will become del S upon R is equal to, now take this triangle. This is nothing but del V upon V. It will become del V upon V. Now the del V will become, just take V that side, so it will become V upon R into del S. Now do one thing, divide both sides by the del T. When you divide both sides by the del T, then this particular equation will become, I will just write down here, it will become del V upon del T is equal to V upon R del S upon del T. It is, I think, misprint here, that's why it is not shown. So del V upon del T is equal to V upon R del S upon del T. So take the limits del T tends to 0 again on the both sides because we want the instantaneous value. So I have taken the limits here, just taken the limits del T tends to 0 del V upon del T, it will become V upon R, limit del T tends to 0 del S upon del T. And we also know that ki del V upon del T, limit del T tends to 0 del V upon del T is nothing but the acceleration. And we also know that limit del T tends to 0 del S upon del T is nothing but the velocity. Just put here. This will become A is equal to V upon R into V. Then V into V becomes V square upon R. We also know that V is equal to omega R. We have already related the two quantities, the linear velocity and the angular velocity. So it will become omega square R square upon R square. Omega square R square upon R. Then 1 R will cancel, then this will become omega square into R. This acceleration is actually denoted by A subscript C, which is called the centripetal acceleration. And this is very important to very important formula for the centripetal acceleration. Now we'll come to the direction of centripetal acceleration, which is very important, and this is easy. I will just come short. Always remember one thing, ki wherever the velocity changes, the direction of the acceleration will be same as that of the change in the velocity direction. See, clearly the BC represent the change in the velocity. So BC is acting towards this, and this particular blue line represent the direction and which is acting towards the center. Just read down this line. The del V and hence the centripetal acceleration vector acts along the radius of the circular path at that point, and it is directed towards the center of the circular path. So direction of the centripetal acceleration is towards the center. Because what I am actually assuming, because I am assuming that del t approaches 0, the del t will become 0. See, for the very small del t, the del theta will also reduce, such that these two quantities come closer. And again, for the very small time del t, the del theta becomes very small, such that v1 and v2 coincides with each other, such that this will represent the velocity component and this will represent the acceleration or del v component, and it will be just like for a very small del t tends to 0, this will both become perpendicular to each other. So clearly see here, the velocity is tangential and will take the perpendicular component, it will act towards the center, which is the radius vector. That's why the direction of del v is towards the center, that represent the direction of the centripetal acceleration which is acting towards the center. So this is the very important line, that the centripetal acceleration which is acting towards the center of the circular path. Now the last one, when you are talking about the non-uniform circular motion. So for non-uniform circular motion, just remember one thing, कि both the acceleration, that is the angular acceleration, which is also called the tangential acceleration, and the centripetal acceleration, both will exist. So when you talk about the non-uniform circular motion, in that case both angular or tangential acceleration and centripetal acceleration both will exist. So for such a case we need to calculate the resultant acceleration, and that resultant acceleration is actually denoted by capital A. So let's come. So in that case we need to calculate the resultant acceleration. So we know that the tangential or angular acceleration is nothing but alpha into r. We have already defined the relation for that. Just now we have derived the relation for the centripetal acceleration also, that is nothing but the v square upon r. So clearly see in the figure, the tangential acceleration and the centripetal acceleration both are acting at 90 degree to each other. So we also know that for 90 degree acting vectors, the resultant will be given by, it is nothing but the under root of a chi square plus b chi square. So we can directly say that the resultant acceleration is nothing but the under root of at chi square plus ac chi square. So we can directly substitute the value of at and ac and we'll get the resultant acceleration here. So this is the last terminology that we need to discuss. So this how we have completed the circular motion. And if you like this lecture, then don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel Dheeraj Sir. Thank you and thanks for watching.